Welcome to Hyperspace Prospector. I will be discussing Into the Light by Claudia Gray. This is part of the High Republic series, Phase 3. There is a slow ramp up in the beginning of this book, but if you can get through it, it is a massive payoff. Amazing ending. I loved it. So cinematic as well. I will warn you though, if you're unfamiliar with the High Republic, you've only read a couple of the other books, most of this will be totally incomprehensible. So this is definitely meant to be read as part of reading the full series. It's not one of those High Republic books that are kind of more one-offs. Just a warning there. If you have not read some of those other novels in a while, you might want to look up a quick recap online before jumping into this one. My favorite part of this book was the deep dive into Wookiee culture on Kashyyyk. We hear about celebrations like Planting Day, which is exactly what it sounds like. And then they have a huge party for several days with dancing and flower crowns and mead. So much mead. We also got to see from a visitor's point of view how worried they were because the spaceship landing platforms are way up high in the trees and therefore kind of vulnerable to attack. And also, it's really difficult to get down the trees if you're not a Wookiee. Like, there were a lot of chapters about just trying to clamber down to the ground in various ways and how tiring and scary that was for non-Wookiees. I mentioned the flower crowns. That was so adorable. Apparently, all the kids love making them. I kind of wish in the Star Wars Holiday Special we had gotten to see live action Wookiee kids weaving flower crowns. That would have been so cute. We also get some descriptions of the terrifying aspects of being on the planet, like the millipedes. And this really reminded me of the Acolyte, those huge bug things on the trees. So I'm guessing that's partly why Kelnaka felt really at home. He's like, oh yeah, the forest, terrifying, massive insects everywhere. Perfect. I especially enjoyed the descriptions of the Wookiee dance moves, which seem to involve line dancing while jumping up and down on the rope platforms, and then a lot of swinging your arms. What's also intriguing is that we jump point of view a lot. For example, we hear from Burry that he worries about some of the other Jedi younglings because Wookiees tend to go to the temple when they're older, and so they remember their homeworld. They have this rooted sense of belonging in the galaxy. That's not an attachment, but it's just a groundedness, I guess you could say. The other younglings don't have that. They were so young they don't remember, and he worries about them. And so it was great hearing that perspective. On the other side, we get some really wild in your head moments. For example, from Aslan, he's beginning to wonder if he's feeling a call to the light side of the Force. And there was like a moment when he was smiling and he was like, I'm smiling? What's happening? It was so funny. He's great in this. There were a lot of Gollum Smeagol type moments where he was like talking to himself almost about the light side, calling, and should he listen or not. I won't tell you what happens, but wow, it was a lot being in his head. He did have some excellent observations, though, especially about the Jedi Order no longer really taking the time to care for their younglings and even their Padawans, just kind of throwing them out into the universe, into the mess and, well, the darkness, in a way, not helping them. In the Clone Wars, where you have situations like Ahsoka, where they were just turning children into child soldiers, basically, and not giving them the care and the love. The Jedi Order really lost its footing starting here in these books, and then we just saw it slide away. I also really enjoyed hearing Orla talked about so often as the shining example of the ideal Jedi, and she's my favorite. So it was really lovely hearing in universe characters agreeing with me and just being like, yeah, yeah, she was the best. There is a love triangle in this, just to warn you. I mean, it's kind of been brewing for a while. Fortunately, Reese is very emotionally mature, and he's doing a really good job in this book of just being polite, being respectful, and also being like, no. Nan, chill. Avon, I have a lot of respect for you, but chill. The main storyline that really captured my attention, however, was Avon and her mother. I have a similar relationship to my parents for very similar reasons. It's really difficult sometimes to live with the things they've done and that they are continuing to choose to do without compromising your own morality, distancing yourself, I guess you could say, but also not wanting to completely cut them off. And it's just this really difficult balance that you have to do. Trying to give them the space to change and eventually do the right thing. And it was really helpful to hear her thoughts on this process because I'm going through the same thing. And there's this moment with Gira where she found out Avon would be in trouble and she decides to help, putting her own life at risk. So, as monstrous as her decisions were, part of her is still there. Part of her mother still exists. People who don't have this kind of relationship with their parents are probably like, whatever. But it really, really helped me because it's a tough situation to be in. What I wasn't prepared for was the ending. I'm not going to tell you anything about it other than the usual High Republic reaction amplified. It combines one of the most beautiful moments in Star Wars for the light side of the Force with one of the most difficult to read. So think back to how you felt with Fallen Star. I was not prepared. Get your Kleenex out for this one. But know that although there are times that feel really hard to read, you're going to come out on the other side of this book with more hope than you have had in a while. I'm going to jump into a few specific quotes that really stuck with me for various reasons. I will say a lot of them are from Affy, and I'm not a huge fan of her character. I mean, she's fun, but I don't feel drawn to her. So it was very interesting that almost all the quotes I wrote down are from her. There's more than one kind of blight infecting the galaxy. Now, she's referring to how people are starting to lose hope and they're so desperate that they're starting to listen to Martian Rowe and they're even on Coruscant going, I mean, he's killed a lot of people and he's trying to take over the galaxy, but maybe we should hear what he has to say. Doesn't look like things are going well. There's more than one kind of blight. Meanwhile, we have Nan, who returns, and she's watching Aslan, who is going around and just poking at people. He likes to do that. Anyway, Nan is watching this, and at a certain point, even she is getting annoyed. And you know, if you're annoying a Nihil, it's gone too far. And she goes up to him and says, you think your own personal pain gives you the right to inflict pain on others in perpetuity? And just like calls him out on it. Nan is many things, but she's always been kind of brutally tells it like it is when she's not obviously doing her spy stuff, which I do appreciate. Like she could have kept silent, but she's like, Aslan, stop. I'm a villain too, but I like her a lot. We're going to briefly talk about Disney right now. There is a quote from Avon, and this is precisely why I am annoyed with them. She nails it. This is exactly why. I don't avoid execution by bowing down before Roe before he's even won the fight. I avoid it by doing everything in my power to make sure Roe loses that fight. In this case, we're dealing with not fascists. The Nihil are many things, but they're not that. But Avon has a point. You do not bow to evil before they've won the fight. Especially when you have tools with which to fight, which Disney did. Another great Avon moment here. She's one of the characters who really understands how serious this all is. She would continue to fight to protect those she loved, even if that was a fight that couldn't be won. So while other characters, like Affy even, at the beginning are kind of feeling like they can't do anything, that darkness is won, that this is just the status quo now, you have people like Avon who are like, no. Another one from Nan here. It was better to burn through fear by action than to let it burn its way through you. Let's do some good quotes for a minute from the Jedi. We have here Amadeo. They've just had a really good victory. When I first woke up feeling so upbeat, I nearly stopped myself, thought, oh, the whole galaxy's in trouble, I can't forget that. But then I realized, it's not about forgetting that. Celebrating joy doesn't mean ignoring trouble. It's about giving each thing its due. And then Reese comes in. When we're fighting on a near galactic scale, it's easy to think of one planet as something small. But it's not. It's an entire population, an entire culture. Just one planet means something. It means everything. Now they're, of course, on a galactic scale, but we have one planet. But you can kind of translate this to one city means something. One country means something. One tiny hamlet in the middle of nowhere means something. It means everything. So if you get a win, however small, it's not just okay to celebrate. You need to celebrate. Give those little tiny sparks the same consideration you do for the bad news. Getting back to the serious stuff again, there is a lot of politics in this. I mean, it's Star Wars. The context for this, there are corporations who come in and want to work with a particular planet, and there's also the Republic who wants to come in. We briefly see the perspective of a corporate representative. What if the Republic chose a much more profit-minded chancellor? Those regulations they're tempting you with, they can be repealed and replaced at any time. With Zerka, you'll have the benefit of contract terms in writing. Okay, now corporations don't necessarily mean good. However, she has a point. At least with a contract, you have more of an ability to fight for your rights if it actually says in writing that you get this. Governments, especially lately, they're constantly changing their minds about stuff, even if you get a law on the books. And even when you do get one, like, I don't know, the Constitution, minor things like that, they're just ignoring it. At least that's what our current government seems to think. Yeah, having a little bit more than, oh, whatever whim the government currently has is unfortunately a good argument. Coming off of that, we have this interesting quote about the Nihil. It started as a promise that the poor and isolated in the galaxy could finally have something for themselves. Now, though, it's just Martian Rose vanity project. Again and again, we see in the Star Wars galaxy people off building golden ballrooms while other people are starving. And they don't care. And eventually, all those people starving in the galaxy band together. Sometimes for pretty good causes, like you get the Rebel Alliance. Other times, they fall for the Nihil, or they fall for the First Order, who comes in with promises of a better life, of being respected as intelligent species, of having food on the table, of taking down a notch those people who have been just sucking them dry, basically, and living in luxury. It's gonna sound like a good plan, even if it's the Nihil. And until we address that underlying issue, you're gonna keep getting violence, you're gonna keep getting fascist regimes. And that's what I really like about the Star Wars universe, is that it doesn't shy away from this. It points it out. It's like the real villain in Star Wars are the oligarchs. The second sequel movie points this out. And I kind of wonder if that's why some people don't care for the film. And I'm like, it's very obvious in that movie. The villains are the oligarchs. They're the ones who cause the ease of the rise of fascism, like the Empire, like the First Order. And it's this just cesspool, I guess you could say, that makes it very interesting to hear a quote from Des. He has recently taken the Barash vow. And again, I love all the acolyte tie-ins here. He is pointing out the Jedi need to work on their process for welcoming back those who have taken the vow. The reason he's saying this is that he was not prepared for just how bad it had gotten. And when they threw him back into it, he was just overwhelmed by the cruelty and destruction and sorrow that was permeating the galaxy. So many people right now, people I know, they're acting like they've just gone off into meditation land, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't read the news. It's upsetting." Yeah, it is. But you have to look at it. You have to interact with it. You have to face it. You have to figure out how to deal with the emotions that it causes. And Des is like, I'm getting overwhelmed. And I think a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed right now. In many parts of the world, you have to face it. And whether you deal with it like the Jedi, where you kind of feel it and let it wash away, wash out of you, whether you treat it like Nan recommends, where you let it burn away with action by doing things, by getting out and doing things about it. But what you cannot do is ignore it. You just can't. Let's finish out with a few of the more fun stuff. We've had enough weighty matters. The prize for best dad joke goes to Avon. So, how long until we find the Mad Doctor's encampment? Avon. I think I laughed for a good 10 minutes when I read that. It was in the middle of a really tense sequence too, and she's like, so about that encampment, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, Avon. The Reese we know and love had to come out with this one. Adventures are all well and good, but in the end, there's no substitute for research. Yeah, we love you, Reese. And now the most important part of this video. Featured cocktails around the galaxy. We have teal wine from Alderaan. I have the blue powder. I could turn wine blue. Oh, but it would need to be a rosé because you'd have to have the light color. Future video idea. We have mead on Kashyyyk. Something called Port in a Storm at Parmathi. Bubble wine. I'm assuming that's some kind of champagne. And a ribbon fruit smoothie that is non-alcoholic on Kashyyyk. So the Wookiees drink smoothies. This is canonical. Also, I love the fact that they don't officially have restaurants, but they have kind of cafes that you can go to, and they simply give you food if they like you. Like, have you done something for the community or not? So, like, if you're a Jedi and you've been out there really helping people, if you come to the cafe, they'll be like, here's caviar or whatever equivalent. But if you go to the cafe and they're like, I do not know who you are, they'll be like, here's water with a lemon in it. Do better. It's like the most passive aggressive restaurant ever. I don't even want to know what Martian Rowe would get if he dared show up at one of those Wookiee restaurants. Where Claudia Gray shines is in her descriptions. Whether it is the horrifying blight or majestic trees of Kashyyyk, for light and life. Or for Nan, ride the storm. If you have read this book, stay with me for 1 minute. We're waiting for the other people to leave. I love that Nan has switched sides. I have adored her character from the beginning. I was so hyped when this happened. I think I may have gone and opened a bubble wine. Okay, also, don't put this in the comments because, spoilers, but do you think Geode really is going to come back? Because if he does not, I think a little part of me died with him. I think I started screaming. I probably scared the neighbors and my roommates. I was doing laundry when I was reading this, okay? Geode explodes. I'm just like in shock. I had to put the book down. And I also had to like move my laundry from the washing machine to the dryer. And I was standing in the garage sobbing. I'm not kidding. Like I was full on sobbing. And I was like screaming Geode over and over. The normies are probably just like, is she okay? I was not okay. It's gotten to the point where every time I do laundry now, I'm thinking of Geode. I'm just like, I'm traumatized now when I do laundry. I'm like, is Geode gone? And I know he was kind of reforming at the end, but I'm like, I am thinking about making a piece of jewelry for Geode. So don't tell me if he survives, but oh, that hurts so much. You don't realize how much you love and expect a character just always be there. Until they're not. And I mean, for Geode, of all people, always come home.